Hi everyone, welcome to Module 4 of Business Practices class. In this module we're going to be talking about product development and pricing. To begin with, let's have a quick review of where we've come so far. We've been focusing primarily on the people portion of your career, and we're going to be transitioning to looking at products this week. But to begin with, we were looking at you, and we were doing some self-analysis work and also thinking about the kinds of people or personality traits that help benefit a small business organization. We looked at the fact that we need three basic types of skill sets in any successful business: that of the entrepreneur that's future oriented, the technician that's quality oriented, and the manager that keeps track of everything and keeps us on target. We also spent some time finding out our life's purpose to find our why, and we learned about how products and services that are successful address people at the core level of the why of what they're doing as opposed to the what and how they're doing it. And I've encouraged you to replace the statement of I do photography or I do digital media to something that's about how you help somebody else do something that they need to accomplish. I help transform lives with my photography. And then people ask, well, how? Why? That sort of thing. And we looked at the core values index and identified that there were four basic archetypes that drive our automatic responses to the world: the banker archetype, the builder, the merchant, the innovator, and those equal the emotions of power, knowledge, love, and wisdom. And our goal here is to be able to draw upon all four of those in our lives so that we can be very strategic in how we go about doing our business and become more aware of what are our dominant and secondary core energies. We also reviewed our resumes of experience that have led us to this point, and we've looked at our strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. We took all that information and we started to develop a vision of what are my lifestyle goals, what are my financial goals, and that becomes the starting point of building your business model to support your lifestyle. And we also worked on a mission statement. And the nice thing about developing a mission statement is it helps define who our target market is more effectively, because if I can identify who my target market is, I can figure out how to reach that target market. And it also defines my value proposition. What is the value of the work that I do and bring into the world? Because the universe will support you if you do something meaningful and important. Also, developing a mission statement becomes a compass and a barometer of the correctness of our course, the correctness of our decisions. Having a mission statement helps move us from being a self-employed person that's always overly busy to a very intentional person that knows how to pick and choose, because we don't have time to pursue every lead or every opportunity that comes our way. So developing that mission statement becomes the very first step towards making good decisions about your career. And then we've gone on to build the first draft of a complete financial model for success. And this is where we put in our fixed expenses based upon where we want to be in 5 years, not where we are today, but we're building a plan for where we want to grow into. And so from that financial model, we're able to develop our pricing structure, our product mix, and we can even develop our sales goals and breaking those down into annual, monthly, and even weekly sales goals. And what you start to see is that the numbers are not so frightening, because when we break it down, as you'll see in just a little bit, you might only need 1 or 2 photo jobs a week to support your lifestyle. So we're going to take a look at that today. I want to take a moment and talk about your SWOT analysis, and SWOT standing for strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And I want to point out something really important to you right now. That is, you're in the best position to innovate that you will ever be in your entire career. When you first start out in business, this is the opportunity to do it right and to be innovative, because there's no consequence yet. It's easier to say no in the beginning than it is when you're too far into your career and all of a sudden you're in a financial strain. So now is the time to be thinking about innovation. When we do a SWOT analysis, we are also wanting to take a look at the marketplace in terms of who's our competition. What are we better than the competition at? What's the niche market that I can really provide a better quality product or service? And what are the ways in which the competition is better positioned in the marketplace than yourself? And then we can turn those weaknesses into opportunities, and we can come up with innovation. And in fact, I'll give you a quick example of that. When I first started out as a commercial photographer, I didn't have a studio space. I was in a basement apartment with a Murphy bed that had to be folded up in the closet. There was no way I was going to compete with high-end commercial photographers that had really nice studio locations. You know what I mean, the brick building with the hardwood floors, high ceilings, all the lighting gear, all the equipment to do some amazing work in-house. I didn't have that. So when I looked at it strategically, I said, well, I'm going to focus on a niche market in the manufacturing and industrial sector, where I'm going to advocate that I actually come out on location and photograph products in their manufacturing plant. So I was a person that had camera equipment, lighting equipment, and I had a station wagon to haul it in, and I promoted my benefit of I'm willing to come out and shoot on location for you so that you don't have to go to the trouble of moving these expensive pieces of equipment or expensive products to a studio location. And for 5 years, I was very competitive because of that, and I made a career out of it. The other thing that I did early on is I adopted digital technology. My job in college had been at a print shop where I worked hands-on with the graphic designer that did the layout and typesetting, and I worked with salespeople, and I delivered, and I got to see a lot of things behind the scenes that inspired me to go down a path of looking at trends of digital technology. And so I invested at the time, which was a lot of money to me first starting out, paying $190 a month in rent in a basement apartment. I didn't have a lot of income, right? I spent $3,500 for a scanner that would allow me to do magazine quality color separations so that I could get paid 3 times on one job. So what I did to compete against the competition is I offered to, number one, come out to their location to photograph. Number two, I provided desktop publishing design services and did full color separations. And the third way I was competitive is I also brokered the printing, meaning that I was able to sell them the final product. And in fact, you'll hear me say this, always try to sell a solution rather than just part of the problem. And so what I was able to do is I was able to go out and market to manufacturers that I knew had trade shows where they needed to have brochures and flyers, and I would get paid 3 times for one job. Once to do the photography, once to do the layout and design and the pre-pressed color separations, and the third time I received a commission on brokering the printing, and I worked with a print shop that specialized in full color printing out of Southern California, and so that worked out really well for me. The last part of our SWOT analysis is to look at threats, and so this is where we want to look at what are trends that are changing the marketplace. For example, if I'm a portrait photographer, I'm really sensitive to what's happening with the iPhone and people publishing more of their own portraits in the marketplace, and I'm concerned about social media. And what happens there is we start thinking about how to turn that threat into another opportunity. Any negative that you come up with, you can always find a positive. So this is where we talk about being innovative. Maybe as a portrait photographer, I want to adopt a social media model to my business where I'm going to create a social media excitement about the portraits of the people that I do. And so I'm going to post and host a social media group based upon my portraiture that tells people stories. I mean, I'm just thinking things up off the top of my head, but that's the job that we want to pay attention to. I will tell you that one of the threats with digital technology early on was the idea that copyright was going to be violated. And I remember sitting in a meeting with a Kodak executive that said, you realize right now in the film era, you takes 4 to 6 weeks to get an order delivered. With digital technology, you can deliver it in a day. So how much more money can you be generating by being able to photograph all the way to Christmas and still deliver final orders? When I start thinking strategically about some of the trends in the industry, I pay attention to things such as the fact that people are not the people aren't using wallet photos, they're using their cell phone as the wallet for displaying photographs. And so several years ago, there was a movement towards developing a technology called sticky albums, where wedding photographers could develop an online wedding album that would be distributed via their smartphone technology. It'd be shared, social media. And this is where paying attention to trends in the industry, looking upstream at the people that have much more to lose, the manufacturers of photography equipment, photo lab equipment. These are million-dollar investments, and by looking upstream at what they're researching about is going to help me as a person making a career. It's going to help me make a career down in the trenches of the day-to-day operations. So that's a great opportunity for us to analyze the marketplace before we step foot into it. Another part of the SWOT analysis asked you to take a look at what kind of jobs are you qualified to do and what kind of jobs should you say no to. And so we're doing a SWOT analysis of jobs you're qualified to, jobs you're not qualified to, and jobs that you'd like to become qualified to because they mean that much to you, and a list of jobs that you should just say no to. It's not going to be worth your time because it's going to pull you away from building your career. I came across this marketing book recently, and it's an excellent read. It's a very quick read. I encourage you to pick it up if you have the resources to do so, because one of the things I enjoyed about it is, although it's not geared to photography and digital media per se, it talks about niche marketing and this idea of the narrower the niche, the deeper the profits, and about building your brand identity in the marketplace. And what I like about this is the author really makes it clear how important specialization is to building your brand identity. And he's talking about the idea of, would you rather go to a general doctor or a heart specialist if you had a heart attack? And the more specialized we become with our photography, the more people are willing to pay a premium price. Here's an excerpt from that book. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this because I encourage you to read the book, but what I wanted to point out was I enjoyed the fact that the author used a photography scenario to get across this point, meaning that photography is a very viable career in today's world because it's very contemporary, and this marketing book's very contemporary. And so he's talking about how, as in most businesses, most photographers start out trying to serve just about every market. They advertise weddings, corporate photography, photojournalism, family portraits, you name it. And in fact, I look at websites all the time, photographers, that you really can't tell that they're specialized in anything. In fact, they'll use the phrase photographer specializing in, and they give you a long list. Well, how can you be very special at any one of those things if the list is too long? The other thing that this particular author gives us is a tool to evaluate empirically what we should be doing based upon three factors: personal fulfillment, value to the marketplace, and profitability. Now, I would probably add a fourth factor, and that is scalability, because really there are some products that they're great, I enjoy doing them, but I can only do one in a 2-week period, so I can't scale that up very much. So you look at the price points and it may not be viable. So if I were to modify this for my own personal use, I would add a fourth factor of scalability to it. But I thought this was a great example. Let's take a look here. Here's an example of looking at 4 different kinds of photography and the different scores on a 1 to 10 scale. And by adding that up, this photographer was able to figure out that family portraits was the work that they should be focusing their intent on. This is going to look different for each one of us. So I recommend you go back and revisit your list of jobs that you are interested in, not interested in, and put some numeric scoring to it. And then I would also encourage you to add a scalability factor as well. So as I've said before, now's the time to be innovative. And we're going to talk a little bit later about paradigms and take a look at what are some ways that we can become aware of the possibilities for innovation in our field. So now in Module 4, we're going to really focus on product development and pricing. And here's a graphic that talks about the 3 levels of a product, starting with the core benefit and the actual product and the augmented product. And so when we think about the core benefit, we're getting at our why statement from our mission. And when we think about the actual product, we're getting to the what aspect of that inward out thinking. And then when we get to the augmented product, we get into the how part of it. And so your core benefit relates to your mission. Your actual product are the actual services and products that you provide, along with their packaging. What do they look like? And then the augmented product is your customer service. As you see, do you offer financing and payment plans? What kind of warranty do you provide, etc. And you're going to learn more about this. I've got a lot of resources in the module. Here's an example of what I've been working on recently with one of my brands, and that is I really enjoy transforming people's lives by showing how magnificent they truly are, that they're iconic, that at every stage of life is a time to celebrate who they are. And this really started out on a personal journey to document my parents as they're coming through a very tough time with cancer. And I wanted to make photos that were honest and yet also celebratory of all those life experiences. I developed this new brand, and my tagline is "Be Iconic and Look Your Best in 2018." The actual products, I've had to do a lot of research on packaging, what I'm going to put prints in, what's going to add value to it, as well as framing and how to present that as well. And then my customer service is the augmented level of attention I give each person, and that's really getting back to Sarah Petty's book about gush-worthy customer service. Here's some business definitions. The core products are a company's products which are manufactured for the company's core competencies. These core products are then integrated into other products. All that's to say is pick the one thing you're really, really good at that you want to become the actual expert in, and then spread from there related products. And that's when we get to product depth, is the number of sub-products offered related to that. And we also get into product width in terms of the number of different categories. And I've presented you an analysis of Starbucks. You can see how Starbucks has added depth and width to their products as well. So here is the introduction to your product development assignment, where we want to be known for one thing. As a photographer, if I'm known for one thing that I do better than anybody else, guess what? People are going to assume that I can also do other things really well too. May not be true, but I wouldn't worry about being too narrow or stuck in a box. And in fact, a lot of my students over the years have said, well, Ira, I like photographing everything. I don't want to be narrowed down. And here's when I always remind them of this. Develop one line of business at a time. Go through this whole product development cycle, and then you can rinse and repeat and add another service and product category that you fully develop. But right now we want to focus on getting one product that you're really known for. In my case, I've really become known for my black and white portraiture, and I'm really getting known for my strong chiaroscuro or no tan composition. So we want to look at our mission statement, look at our target market, and come up with what's our core product. So with that in mind, what I'm asking you to do is build a table that describes what are the characteristics of your core competency. In my case, I'm talking about studio portraiture that has a main light, hair light, background, separation light. You see all those characteristics there. Also, if you know me at all, I'm into a variety of lighting styles, a short, broad, split, Rembrandt, butterfly, that will complement the subject, and that goes back to portrait class of I'm wanting to sculpt or shape the face with light to create that most average golden mean proportion. And you can see that with this sample image from my website. I'm looking at expression that communicates an emotional intensity to it. I'm looking at retouching quality, posing, use of background lighting, rim lighting, image design that portrays brand archetypes. That's something I'm developing now. I didn't have that when I started. I'm actually building a whole portfolio based around trying to communicate all the different brand archetypes, color calibration, etc. So when I look at that, my signature product is my Be Iconic business portrait. When I look at some product depth and some other categories of target market, I can look at business owners, political candidates, modeling portfolios, actor headshots. You notice once I define the product, now I can find a whole bunch of identifiable target markets that could use this product. So it's got synergy and scalability. I've got one core product with a set of lighting and composition skills that now I can apply to a synergy and scalable marketplace. And I have a price point. Right now I'm starting at a $600 price point that easily jumps up to about $1,200 to $1,500 depending on what the typical client gets. But the basic starting point is $600. And then my price point augmentation is going to be that packaging and customer service that comes along with that. When I'm looking at synergy and scalability, I'm looking at what else could I do using those same exact skill sets. I'm in a studio portrait environment. I'm primarily focused on fine art, black and white portraiture. When I look at my synergy and scalability in my product development, I am mostly interested in fine art legacy portraits, what I'm calling it. But I can also use the same exact technical skills to produce business portraits and headshots, and use the same skill to do senior portrait athletes. You notice a lot of athletes are really getting that stylized Rembrandt, kind of that Joel Grimes look to it. Well, I can do that as well. I can do a modeling portfolio in the studio. I can also do those video interviews that I've shown people in the past, where in addition to the photo shoot, I could actually do a profile video. The big emotional pain I can help people solve is I can create images that they feel confident in for using on dating sites for their profile photos or on their social media profile photos. So that's a whole nother marketing campaign for that service as well. So I can build a whole business model around that one core product and have one website dedicated to just that business line. And in fact, different lines of businesses have different branding and different websites. The best piece of advice I've ever received was from a photographer who said, hey, I have multiple websites, one per line of business. And I found that to be hugely beneficial. So like you probably have an interest in fine art. I know I do. I finally have figured out what my fine art work is. And you'll even notice that it has a similar look and feel to my portraiture, because guess what? That's my archetype. That's my unconscious way of seeing the world. That's my core values and energies at work. You get the same person with every piece of art. Here is a screen capture. I'm going to be updating this website, but for now, this is where I'm at. Two different websites. One for fine art, where the benefit is helping provide serenity, and I'm pointing out the pain point of what it's like to live in an urban environment and be stuck in traffic, and how I'm going to help them create a sanctuary in their home with these kinds of fine art photographic images. Looking at my fine art website, I have three different categories of images. One is what I call my Concha collection. It's based on the emotion of gratitude. I'm talking about the why up front with how I name it. And that's images that have context, that are place-based. And then I have the Satori collection, which is another emotion of sudden enlightenment based on Zen meditation practice, that I'm looking at that really isolated black nothingness background and looking at the intricate patterns. And then finally, another Sanskrit word, Viraya, which deals with the energy of color. And so I've got color photography, I've got black and white with stark black backgrounds, and then I have traditional black and white imagery, all named based upon an emotion, that why factor. And then I'm also offering services such as custom designed artwork for their home. I can do a computerized design of their room and show them what that work's going to look like before they make a final purchase. I also have produced some merchandise, so pillows, teacups, ways to have functional artwork, and then ultimately I'm going to offer art classes to teach people how to use photography as a way to appreciate the world. So teaching is a big part of my business model. Again, here's the breakdown of my different products and services that are all related to the core value, and that core value is to produce artwork that's designed to trigger alpha waves in the brain to soothe and relax, and that's what that core value is for that whole business. At this point, I'd like to talk about the core value index and answer the question of why would I ask you to do some form of psychometric survey that is going to tell you about your subconscious energies in your life, and how does that relate to business? And we've seen that with branding and brand archetypes, and now we see that with the core value index. Well, the reason I want to share this knowledge with you is because our emotions drive our action. And it also drives the actions of our customers. So purchase decisions, our artwork, everything we do is driven by our emotions rather than reason. Therefore, we need to calibrate our emotions by visioning and dreaming and journaling and listening to podcasts that provide us meaningful, worthwhile information. We need to choose how to spend our time with our socialization, research, lifelong learning, and frankly, all of us could benefit from working with a mentor, a life coach, etc. And essentially, we're writing the user manual for our life and our career. And that's what this class, in a sense, is about, building that business model to support your life and career. And we need to learn about ourselves, because every business problem is a people problem. I got that quote from a friend of mine who's a very successful business coach over in Europe. And he talks about the fact that you can use excuses to say, oh, the market went down, or consumer attitudes change. But ultimately, we see companies that survive every recession, survive every change in technology, is because they have the right people, the right personality traits to continue to move forward and be successful. And I'm trying to help empower you to know yourself better so you can be more successful. I want you to be aware of the different domains of emotional intelligence, and that's what all this really core value index is helping us develop, is an understanding of our emotional intelligence, because our clients are making their purchase decisions at an emotional level, not at a logical level. We saw that with the video about the inside out marketing of the why and the what and the how. And so domains of emotional intelligence include self-awareness, self-management, social awareness, relationship management, and ultimately it's the good karma, law of attraction of what we put out there comes back to us. And when we can put out something really positive things come back to me. And it happens over and over in my life. One of my personal goals for each of you right now is for you to find a way to make your work and your business fun and a source of authentic happiness in your life. When we spend anywhere from 8 to 12 hours a day toiling at work, if it's misery and drudgery, how are we going to have a happy life? If we think of all the time we spend our waking hours, if we're not enjoying ourselves, how good a life is it at the end? So I really want you to be thinking about how can you make an authentic, happy life by making an authentic, happy career. Career planning is about living your life by design and having freedom of choice. When we get to marketing and branding, we really explore the idea about how emotions operate on the subconscious level. You notice we don't spend a lot of time seeing ads that apply to the logical side of the brain. Even when I watch TV ads for cars, Chevy is trying to right now promote the idea of safety, that they're the safest car out there. That's an emotion. Fear is very real in this world. So they're appealing to the emotional side of the equation rather than the logical, telling you about the engine size, telling you about the cargo space, etc. So emotions operate on a subconscious level, and they're instant. And that's where that core value is. What is your instant default position coming from? Is it from the builder, the banker, the merchant, the innovator? That's going to be an automatic response. What's interesting about the CVI to me is that it's an assessment based on the concept that every individual is born with an innate, unique way of being which is not learned. Research is showing that we just have a way of being in the world, and those are set very early on in our childhood. So again, you're in a college course. I don't expect your personality to change by much. I expect you to be able to have some tools to maximize, be the best you can be, and understand what drives you, and be able to bring more of you out into the marketplace, but then also balance that out with some strategic pivoting to some of these other skill areas to build a career. And so what's interesting about this is there's a lot of psychometric surveys out there, such as the Myers-Briggs, one that's very well known. Those are typically based on your aptitude or your knowledge or some other factor, whereas the CVI is not behavior-based and it's not aptitude-based. It's just looking at a series of choices and preferences that are really, all the answers were positive, so you just had to pick the best answer that fit you. So it's a different way of asking those questions. So these last couple slides are actually from a friend of mine who's based out of Germany, who is a business coach and very highly successful business consultant who's had an amazing career, and we happened to reconnect after I hadn't seen him in 30 years, and he was kind enough to share this with me so that I could share it with you. And I think the key message from this slide is that the more we're able to live and work in alignment with our core values, the happier and more successful we are in life. And what was so in alignment with what I'm trying to do with this business class is to help you not have to be in a situation where you feel like you're fighting. I don't want you to feel like you're fighting against the current, but rather go with the current that feels best and right for you, that your path feels right and it is right, as opposed to, I'm trying to help you build a career that's in alignment with who you are instead of you fighting to build a career that you think is based upon your competition. You're not having to worry about your competition. You're having to worry about building a business model that works for you, that is based upon your strengths, comes from a position of knowing that your basic values have a tremendous value in the marketplace and will help you identify who your target market is. So I think the biggest difficulty in the past I've had teaching business practices is people are trying to build a business based upon their competition, trying to emulate their competition rather than figuring out who they are so that they can bring something truly unique and special into the marketplace that fits them and will support you. As I stated earlier, every business problem is a people problem, and what we don't know about ourselves controls our life, and what we don't know about people around us dictates the success of our business teams. And so I think when we look at the core value indexes, it's going to be illuminating to be able to sit in a sales presentation with a prospective client and go, oh, I know what personality energy that is, and I know how to think strategically, and I know how to communicate effectively with this kind of personality. And so when we get to another module where we talk about sales and negotiation, we're going to be able to revisit this and come up with some strategies of first figuring out what kind of prospects I need to be talking to because they speak my same language, or when I come into contact with a business or a client that's speaking from a different energy point, I know how to pivot and talk strategically in a way that reaches that person, because ultimately sales and marketing is about communication. So here are the 4 basic core values. A reminder here, we've got the builder, the merchant, the banker, the innovator, and I will share this with you so that you can add this to your notes and start thinking about what kinds of communication strategies will be effective later on when we talk about sales presentations. Just to wrap up, what the CVI can do to help us is it can help us identify the why of our work and understand what drives us, and it helps us become aware of what we're trying to do with our photography and digital media work. It adds information for you to use with your brand archetype. They go hand in hand, as you'll see in the next module. And they help you determine what kind of prospects you should look for. For example, if I am of a merchant archetype and I'm really based from emotion of love, then maybe I'm really going to look for prospective brides to do work with. I always knew in my portrait business that I didn't want to deal with dentists and lawyers because those folks are coming from the banker personality trait, and that wasn't a good fit for me. So knowing what your archetype is will help you determine what your best prospective client will be. It also informs you for strategies for communicating with prospects and clients. and it helps you as you're building out your team to know what traits you need to look for when hiring employees, when hiring vendors. For example, I'm not interested in a touchy-feely accountant. I want an accountant that's just focused on the numbers and giving me the information I need to be successful. If I want to hire a social media consultant, I need somebody that's more of a merchant innovator personality type, because they're really about building relationships. So it helps us narrow down and build a stronger team if we understand the 4 characteristics that every business has to have. When we talk about the 4 core values, we're not saying that we don't have some aspect of us in all 4 of those domains. We do. We just have 2 of them that are stronger than the other 2 that become our default position. We need to build strategies that connect with all 4 core values, and this class actually addresses all 4 values. For example, the builder archetype really comes into play with developing your vision statement and developing your goals. This is what we need to build. The banker archetype really comes into play with the financial spreadsheet, with developing your pricing model, your contracts. And then the merchant archetype really comes into play with the finding your why and your mission statement, your branding, your marketing plan, customer relationship management. And then finally, the innovator archetype really comes together with product development and developing those business processes and workflows that really help you produce a high quality product or service. Now I'd like to go back to your product development assignment and just point out what we're asking you to do. I want you to figure out, based upon your photographic identity, of the types of work that you are most passionate about doing and have the skill to do, or will to be developing the skill to do in the very near future. Figure out what that core competency is and think about it from that emotional level, thinking about what is the driving force behind that core competency, and write down the characteristics. And this is very much a case of developing your portfolio rules. Remember that from a previous lesson where we talk about developing portfolio rules that adhere to a set of characteristics. Put that on the left-hand column. Then let's name that core product. What is your signature product? And in my case, I've called it the Be Iconic Business Portrait. And then in the third column, I want you to think about your product and marketing mix that has synergy and scalability by listing the types of people that could use that core competency service, and start identifying those target markets related to it and how that might be just a subtle change in packaging of your product to be able to offer to a wider audience. And then go ahead and put a price point to it, which we'll go over pricing in our next assignment. So you can just kind of guesstimate for right now. And then be thinking about your packaging. And in fact, I want to go ahead and show you a couple of options there. If I'm doing any sort of retail product, such as a print delivery, I'm going to need packaging to add value. And I always think of the movie Breakfast at Tiffany's, where the cheapest product that the store sold, as long as it was in a Tiffany's box, made it incredibly valued to the client. And packaging is everything. So one of the ways you can discover packaging options is to do what I did, which is join a professional trade association, go to trade shows, or go to their website and look at their community listservs, their newsletters and magazines, and look at what other people are doing. So I came across Tyndale Photographic Packaging. They've got all kinds of things to work with. In the past, I've worked with Rice Studio Supply, and they really have a nice set of packages as well. And so some of you might be going, but I'm only a digital product. Well, guess what? They have very expensive ways to package flash drives as well. So take a look and be thinking about how you want to package your work. In my case, I'm going to be developing a product that is a package purchase where you automatically get a wall portrait and a frame along with 4 fully retouched 8x10s that will be delivered in some sort of box or folder. Really nice ornate packaging. Plus, I'm going to deliver some digital products for social media. So I had to think through all that, and it was a very painful and So one of the things I had to figure out is if I'm putting a package together that's based on a 16 by 20 framed piece of art, how am I going to package that framing? A cardboard box that's brown, looks like it got shipped from UPS, isn't going to be very exciting for customer service. So I had to do a lot of research and find that I can get a frame bag that has my logo printed on it so that the client can leave my studio with a really nice packaging for that product, and I'm selling a solution because that frame will be ready to hang immediately. If I have to ship the final framed portrait somewhere, then I'll actually end up packaging it with shipping as well. So, but I at least have something that's actually got a secondary use because the client. What's kind of interesting about this is the packaging then becomes the advertisement to the next potential client, because that frame bag, if it's a smaller 11 by 14 frame bag, might actually turn into a reusable grocery bag, or they might re-gift something else in it, and it's got my logo and website on it, will make it very, very nice. So that's just where I'm at right now. I'd like to wrap up this video and just summarize that we've spent some time looking at the subconscious factors that affect our business. We've looked at how we're going to be touching upon all four of the archetypes necessary for a successful career in the business practices course. And we spent some really important time talking about developing our core products and how to start identifying synergy and scalability by defining some similar target markets that could use those very same skill sets. We've talked about using your SWOT analysis to become innovative and to develop your photo identity, and we've also talked about product development and how you can take your core set of values, your core set of skills, and develop a range of products, developing some depth and breadth width to your portfolio of services that is still tightly focused around a single brand experience for your customer. You'll hear this over and over, that if we confuse, we lose. If we confuse our clients about who we are and what we do, they don't know how to make a choice. So the confused mind always says no. I want you to focus on all your strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and to think strategically how you can build a core product or service that is scalable, that will support an overall business model. In our next module, we will talk about pricing. Thank you all so much for being here, and I'm so excited for every one of you.